But right now, for his view on the debate we just saw between Treasurer Jim Chalmers and Angus Taylor, let's bring in Judo Bank economic advisor Warren Hogan. Warren, what's your view on how this played out? This is the crucial issue, and voters will judge the Albanese government harshly. But do you think Angus Taylor really nailed Jim Chalmers on that tonight?
Look, I don't think he got the killer blow. He didn't ram home the message about the tax burden, the massive increase on taxes on Australians, and he certainly didn't get that sense of the responsibility for the inflation, but he really did win the overall sense of being able to articulate the challenges that the Australian people are facing. The risks that have been posed by not just what's happening now with the tariffs and the market volatility, but with our productivity problem, with our standard of living going backwards, and articulating a plan. And I think that's what he had to do, and I think he did that really well. So I think Angus Taylor has come out pretty well tonight.
Yeah, he did perform really well. And for many Australians, this might have been the first they saw of Angus Taylor because he hasn't given... he hasn't been perhaps as prolific as he could have been in terms of media appearances. I think they each got really strong lines in tonight. Angus Taylor, his closing sentence, his closing address there, he said, "Who do you trust to manage the economy more?" That is what the coalition's putting. And then Jim Chalmers, called it a coalition of cuts and chaos, which was quite a biting line as well. Yeah,
well, I think Chalmers didn't land the blow that they're trying to land through this whole campaign, which is the coalition's going to cut. It's actually now just becoming noise because Taylor was able to get through that. So, look, I think if you are looking seriously, and economics is extraordinarily complex, the job of the Treasurer is ever more how to actually communicate these issues. I think you can see that Taylor has actually risen to the occasion. And the problem for the Treasurer is he continues to look like a politician and driven by sort of set pieces and slogans, whereas Taylor is actually articulating the issues. And I think that was the contrast that Angus Taylor had to bring out. So, look, I think from an economist's point of view, knowing what I think is the real priorities for this country, the government's already shown its hands. They are spending too much. The tax burden on Australians is too high. We are running an experiment with growing government like we haven't seen in our past. At the same time, we're seeing one of the biggest shocks to the world economy since 1945. And I think the real issue is this government up for this challenge? And I am worried it's not. The question now is, can Taylor take on the job? And I think tonight he showed that he can.
That question, though, voters are, or they should be if they're not concerned about the $1 trillion of debt that Australia would reach under the Albanese government next financial year. But then when Ross Greenwood turned that back on Taylor and he said to Taylor, well, what would you cut? That was a difficult moment in this debate because Taylor couldn't really answer beyond, the renewable energy plan.
And that's the problem with being in opposition. We saw Bill Shorten lose an unlosable election to Scott Morrison because of a big suite of some really good policies, but it was too much for the electorate to handle. John Hewson's the classic back in 1993. So the opposition has got this really tricky ground to navigate, to say they're going to do things differently, to demonstrate it without giving the government the material for a scare campaign. The reality is, if you are going to unwind just the bracket creep, if you're going to give back to the Australian people the increased real tax burden that has happened under this government, that is 60-odd billion a year of cutting. Now, no government's going to do that, but that's the magnitude of it. So there's no way to address that because it'll just give them reasons to run a scare campaign. He has made it clear, and Dutton has made it clear, they are going to restrain government spending, and I think that is the most important point.
I mean, the question that Ross Greenwood put to Jim Chalmers, will you apologise for the $275? It is such a difficult question for the Treasurer to answer because that was an obvious promise that was made at the last election, that your power bills will be $275 cheaper. I mean, you'd think Australians would be furious about that. But again, has the coalition properly pinned that to Albanese and Chalmers?
Well, I think actually Taylor made a very good effort at highlighting that the government, and the Treasurer in particular, is very good at blaming other people for the problems, making it the Ukraine war, making it something going on with tariffs, so that they will not... And that's important, because that not accepting that you are part of the mix means that for people who are struggling, you're part of the problem. And I think Taylor did actually get that out there. But to your point, I think this is one of the most effective examples of that, because they haven't been doing that.
In your mind, was there a clear winner tonight?
Oh, Angus Taylor had everything to gain, and the Treasurer had everything to lose, and that's exactly what happened.
So who won?
Oh, Angus Taylor showed that he is a genuine alternative, because he knows what's going on and he understands the issues.
All right. Warren Hogan, thank you so much. Appreciate your time as always.